are the things I speak over my life. And now I know I am much stronger now. And so despite what the enemy tries, I can rely on the word of God. So now, never will I give down. And I can't turn like the hands of time. I can only see.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's me, your local pastor, Pastor Sandy Bailey Gwynn, and it's a wonderful day to be alive. It's a wonderful day to see your name on the wake-up list and not the obituary list. So right there is a good thing to praise God for. And we just want to thank him for allowing us to see this beautiful day. It could be raining where you are. It's a possibility, it could be snowing. The weather's kind of tricky. But today is a good day to just worship God for being him all by himself. Today, I just want to encourage you to share, like. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're definitely on Facebook, Foundations for Living, and just share to your friends, because today's conversation is something that I've been looking forward to. Again, you got to remember, Foundations for Living have 4 branches, 4 paths, 4 focuses that we deal with. Health, mental health, domestic violence, prevention of HIV, and career development. These are the disparities that we as a people have either touched or know somebody who has had to touch those areas. And we are an organization that's bringing strength and transformations to students, families, and communities that's dealing with all those particular disparities. I'm not going to continue on rambling, but I want you to know that we're here for you. Call us, Foundations for Living, 706-424-8298. As we grow, we want you to grow. The last shows have been outstanding. I have some announcements that's coming up, but I definitely want to thank my sponsors, Gilead Pharmaceutical Company, for believing in us so we can try to do what we need to do for the community. And also, I just want to thank my community partners. I will not name you, but you know who you are. Thank you for actually being a monthly donor to Foundations for Living, because it's just not the broadcasting show. We actually have boots on the ground. We actually take care of families. We actually take food to family. We actually send money to other organizations so they can be a help instead of a hindrance to the community. Few announcements that I got coming up. Foundations for Living is getting ready to connect with First AB, African Baptist Church in Monroe, Georgia. We're also connecting with the Health Department of Northeast Georgia. We're doing a vaccination drive. You heard me, a vaccination drive. It's not a Democratic thing. It's not a Republican thing. It is a community thing of being healthy. And we have decided to stop talking about it, and we're going to be about it. We will be connecting with them May the 28th on a Friday from 10 until 2 o'clock. The flyer is on my website. Again, it is May the 28th on a Friday between 10 and 2 p.m. The Northeast Georgia Medical Center, along with Reverend Edwin Beckles. And I thank you for just believing in the mission to make sure our community is whole. This is not the only church. We have other churches that are lined up. And if you want Foundations for Living to partner with you and the health department to bring the actual drive to your location, hit me up. Inbox me, and I will connect those 2 dots, and we can do that. Also, to answer some questions, I know we had a COVID interview with Dr. Burley. It was crazy. And the Todd Harper family. It was Dr. Burley and Todd Harper. We had so many questions that y'all requested part 2. Well, you got it coming. Next Thursday will be part 2. Dr. Burley and Pastor Beckles will be on. I will interview them, and they're going to talk about the science that has already taken place. You know, we have a vaccination for kids that are 12 and up. We're actually going to talk about what does that look like? What are some of the benefits for our children? And also, what are we doing as a community to continue to heal our community? So next Thursday, same place, same location. We're going to go a little deeper with COVID-19 part 2. Also, if you want to hear me, I will be flying via StreamYard to Houston, Texas. I'm being interviewed by one of my nephews. He is working hard with ending the HIV epidemic in Houston, Texas. His name is Titan Capri. So he will be interviewing me on tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You talking about a conversation, and the topic for tomorrow: are you mad at Christ or are you mad at the church? There's a difference. Are you mad at Christ or are you mad at the church? So let's get down to why we're here. God had been dealing with me about reentry for citizens back into the socialization or the citizenship of people that have been in prison or people that had been in jail. And I began to, I guess, get mad at myself because I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing to shine light on our brothers and our sisters that come out but don't have a sense of belonging or a foundation or a support system that can really hold them, not handle them, but hold them to where they need to be? And I began to ask a few organizations what their thought process was, even when it comes to jobs. And they just really looking at me like, we got programs, but are those programs really efficient? Are they really doing what they need to do? Or are you just shuffling paper? Are you really putting programs together that's really going to help our brothers and our sisters make it, not only for them, but you got people that have children. And if they can't make it, that means their children can't make it. And I'm tired of seeing people go back into jail, especially when they don't want to. Now, you got some that they just love jail. They love that number across their back. I can't help them. But you got some that really want to make it and do the right thing for themselves. So this topic tonight is reentry for community building. Reentry for community building. I had asked a particular judge by the name of Caroline Evans for my mistake. I gave her the wrong date, and she had something on tonight. But God did not leave us. He brought somebody in. And I also asked Jen Langston. Jen is the executive director for Reboot Jackson, but she couldn't be because we believe in family. And her daughter advanced to the championship of her softball game. So I told her to go. But like I said, God will never leave you nor forsake you. He sent us in two powerhouse men that are on the battle, boots on the ground, that love what they're doing. The first person I'm getting ready to introduce you to is Shane Sims. Shane, come on out. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. And how are you, Pastor?
I am doing well. The second person I'm getting ready to bring out to you is Mr. John Langston from Reboot Jackson.
Good evening, Miss Sandy. How are you?
I am good. I thank y'all so much for just saying yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just saying yes and not turning me away, even though it seemed chaotic. I'm normally a very organized person, but here lately it's been kind of crazy. So what we're going to do, I'm going to let Shane go first. I'm going to interview you first, Shane. John, I'm going to bring you back in. And then when I interview you, John, then we're going to open it up for panel discussion. So if I have any parents, any people that have anybody in the jail or incarceration, pull out your questions. I got Facebook Live here, and we're just going to go in and we're going to put it out on the table. We're going to talk about everything from housing, from program design, from the judicial system and probation and faith. How does faith play a part in recovery? Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How you doing, Miss Kim? Thank you so much. In fact, Kim used to work for the Barrow County Police Department. She was in the jail system. So it's good to have her on. So Shane,
Yes,
who
ma'am.
are you?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a grateful servant. That's in the beginning and in the end. My assignments, I guess you can say, from God is that I'm executive director of People Living in Recovery. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that assists individuals and families with substance use disorders, mental health challenges, and homelessness challenges. I'm also a co-founder and co-director of Modern Pathways to Recovery Housing for Men. We're a program that was started to give men a chance at recovery. One of the things that my co-founder and co-director and I realized was that recovery was available to those who had the money to recover. And if you came from that demographic that could not afford recovery, then you just sat on the fringes of recovery and hope to benefit from crumbs thrown your way every so often. And those are not thorough programs. They're just opportunities that made it seem like we were checking the box.
Ooh.
And so we conceived the modern pathways to recovery, and we created a way to assist individuals with entry fees and all the expenses that are associated with recovery. And we began in February, and thus far we have been relatively successful at that. So today, that is probably one of the greatest social accomplishments. I'm also chaplain with the Athens Clarke County Police Department, and one of my jobs there is to provide chaplaincy for our officers, but also to act as a liaison between the police department and the community. One of my greatest goals, aspirations, and I hope accomplishment is to bridge the gap between community and police department. Sometimes we all need someone we can identify with in order to accept some truth that may have been out there. And because of my lived experience and my position, I have the trust of both the police department and my community, and I try my best to use that to bridge the gaps. I'm also a father to be, I guess you can say. I'm expecting my first son in September. Yes, ma'am. And this is my greatest worldly accomplishment.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for that. Other than this, I'm a community activist, a motivational speaker, and just whatever people need me to be in their life to help them get from point A to point Z.
Bruh, I told you to run it on and you did. But you know what? I'm not mad at you. I remember old preachers used to say, you are a poor frog if you don't praise your own pond.
Okay.
So you have a right. But there are a couple of things that I heard. One thing I have to give you credit for, 85% of funding program, you said it's two things. One, you got to have the money to get into the program. And that kind of teed me off when I found that out. And number two, you don't see too many programs that is designed just for recovery for men. It's either women or children. So to find out that that's what y'all specialize in, why men? Why you didn't do children like everybody else? Or women?
Sure. I tried to think outside of the box when it comes to addressing social ills. To continue to do the same thing over and over again, as they say, the definition of insanity, you're going to end up with the same results. For me, being a man that came from a relatively broken situation and understanding the things that made me vulnerable to bad decisions in life, including substance abuse, I knew that other men need to have men that could relate to them, men that they could trust in order to mend and to heal themselves. And I felt like what greater way to do it than to create a situation where men can come in and be vulnerable at the same time, that can address the little boy that never healed within themselves and do it in a safe environment. And so I just felt like the need is there. You know, society has a tendency to think that men are strong. We are. However, sometimes that strength has to be built up to, and it's not just a given. And so being that we noticed that need, being my co-founder and myself, we conceived this idea of giving back to men and paying forward what was ultimately what was poured into us too.
My last show, the guy from DC, Chris is 33, and he made a profound statement. And we was talking about the church, and he said the church is designed for women to worship, not designed for men. And that thing hit me because he said we can't be vulnerable. We can't trust men in the church for us to really be transparent. So when you make that statement that they need somebody that can hold them, but yet hold them accountable, that's very important. We look at y'all to be the leaders, but there are times that you have to be led.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And for me, I think one of the greatest benefit I gained from male mentors, at the age of 19, I met an older mentor, older gentleman, and a lot of people didn't pay him much attention because he had kind of this twitch in his neck. So, you know, people wrote him off as being crazy. But for whatever reason, he took an interest in me. And once we got to know each other, he used to tell me all the time, he said, by the time you get 25, you're going to be beautiful. He used to say, people are going to want to touch you. They're going to want to hold you. And I didn't realize how much him making himself vulnerable enough to tell me, another man, that it made me able to be vulnerable towards him. And he poured into me. And he would always say, you always look out for people, always reach out for people. And it really reiterated something that my father raised my older brother and my younger brother and I with, is that you always look out for the most vulnerable. And I used to always wonder why he emphasized that we should take care of the handicapped. I used to wonder that. But I realized that God had a plan in my life. And in order for me to live that plan out, I had to be willing to become vulnerable with the most vulnerable in order to build them up.
Your organization focuses on mental health. We know that this month is mental health awareness.
Yes, ma'am.
How does that look for men? And how does that look for a Black man?
Oh, wow. That's a big thing. In our program, we're currently in the process of terminating a young man that I happen to have met over a year ago to speak with him about his substance use challenges. And he wasn't ready then. He came to me this time after doing 9 months in the county jail and said, he was like, I'm ready. We brought him into the program, got the courts to agree, got the judge to agree, his lawyers to agree. And it's like been one slip up after another. And finally, we came to realization that he has some mental health challenges, but he's going to cloak and mask them in this masculinity, which keeps us from being able to address the issues. And I literally pled with him. I said, listen, you got to be honest. You got to be willing to talk. And he got quiet for a minute. I thought there was a breakthrough, but then that was just pullback. I'm all right. It's everyone else's fault. And I feel for him because we have to hold him accountable. No program would stand without accountability. However, at the same time, I knew that wasn't his true self. That was just this false masculinity he built up to hide the fact that he does have some mental health challenges that are undiagnosed and therefore unaddressed. And I'm afraid he's going to be stuck in a cycle of addiction until they're addressed. But he won't allow anyone to address it. So it's a catch-20.
You got to be able to face who you really are. So, yeah. Mr. Sims, you haven't always been the executive director. You haven't always walked in these positions. How did you get here? What was your faith to move forward? How did you start to say, you know what, I got to do better?
Sure. Well, what made me realize that I had to do better was when the judge smacked the gavel and sentenced me to life plus 15 years in prison at the age of 18.
Wait a minute. I need everybody to share and like, because this is a story. These two men have something to say, and I need for you to listen, because there's somebody's son, there's somebody's nephew, there's somebody's uncle that needs to see that where I start is not where I'm supposed to end.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Sims, talk to me.
I think for the sake of perspective, in light of this show, there was a major situation that happened in my life, and this happened many years before my 18th birthday. At about the age of 10 or 11, I remember my younger brother and I were playing in the hallway of our home, and we had a spare bedroom. And I guess, and just looking back, maybe for like the past month or so before this night, my parents had been going to the spare bedroom and taking the doorknob out of the door. And so my brother and I were in the hallway playing, and I just got curious. I'm like, what's going on? Not really expecting to see anything. And when I peeped in the door, what I saw, it devastated me. There were my parents doing a drug with crack cocaine. In fact, my father was holding a lighter for my mother. And it crushed me. I knew what crack cocaine was because at that time, during the early 90s, it had devastated most households of my friends. And seeing it robbed me of all the sense of security. I thought somehow our home had immunity, while my friends' parents or parent were succumbing to the drug. My parents seemed to be more functional. And this crushed me. And it started a spiral. I did well in school, Cub Scouts, football, all this good stuff. And I continued to do okay, but I carried that burden. And eventually that burden became greater than my strength. And I gravitated towards the streets. So by the age of 13, I was less interested in school, still did relatively well because it was easy, but I pulled in a entirely different social circle. By the age of 14, my first daughter was on her way. I was smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol. By the age of 15, I had an entirely different social circle. And I was aware that something was going on, but I had no idea what. I did not realize that I had been robbed of my belief in anything that's stable, any belief in authority, because of that night. And it wouldn't be 2 years later that I was able to connect the two. But ultimately, by my senior year in high school, I still managed to stumble through high school, and did okay. That I just came to a breaking point. You know, it was either I was going to choose to do school, do the security thing, or I was just going to give in to the pull of the streets. And unfortunately, one night I decided to go with some guys to rob a store. And my reason for participating was because the job that I worked at closed unexpectedly. And of course, at that time, I had child support. I had grown people bills because my parents were deep into their addiction. And initially, when armed robbery suggested, it was just like, you got to be crazy, because even at that time, I still wanted to be a physical therapist in the midst of all that. But association brings about assimilation. That is so true. And this conversation was had between myself and these four other individuals for about a week. And eventually one night, it's just like, look, I have to have some money. I'm going to go. And all of them had already done robberies or participated in various criminal activities. So they assured that it would go off smooth. We'll go in, come out, and it was okay. It didn't go like that. We went in and we did indeed come out, but the guy that had the gun shot the clerk. And I remember hearing the clerk scream. And I knew at that point that it was over. But it turned out to be the beginning in reality. I turned myself in. Crime. And the judge told me that although I didn't handle a weapon and that I seemed to be a good kid, that I would be sentenced just as harshly as the one who pulled the trigger. And he sentenced me to life plus 15 years in prison.
I still can't get past. You see your parents who you look up to, who you admire, and they doing something that you done heard your other friends' parents doing.
Yes, ma'am.
And from that triggered a spiral.
Sure. And it seems to be, for me, and this, of course, in hindsight, is very often without intervention, we become what hurts us. And it almost kind of reminds me of Stockholm syndrome, where the Jews begin to identify with their captives. They stayed in captivity so long that they begin to empathize, even sympathize with their captors. And I think that's just a part of human nature, that the thing that we can't defeat, we ultimately join forces with it. And I think that's why so many become the very thing that they despise as they grow up.
That's amazing. Okay. Shane, I thank you. I'm going to pull you backstage, and I'm going to bring out John Langston. And after I interview John, then we all going to have a long conversation. Come on in, John. How you doing, sir? Let me see. Hold on. I think I got, there we go. I got you muted.
There you go.
All right. We good.
You got it.
John.
Yes, ma'am.
And first I want to check. Again, y'all, please share this. Please share this. And check and see if I have any feedback. Because one person said they got echoes in the background. So I want to make sure we cut that out, because I want everybody to hear what God is doing in men, real men lives. John, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm John Langston, and I guess first and foremost is I'm a person in recovery. It's been, what that looks like to me is it's been 4,636 days. And I say that in days because I have to do it one day at a time. And that's 12 years and 8 months and a few days since I've had any minor mood altering substances. And I thought Shane was going to mention it. I'm also a returning citizen. And if you look at my name there, that FPM is a forensic peer mentor. And Shane and I went through the same training at the same time for that forensic peer mentor. And what it allows us to do is to be able to talk with people. You have to have experience of being involved with the criminal justice system to receive that certification. It's a 40-hour academy you have to go to receive it. And it gives us the opportunity to be able to talk with returning citizens before they hit the street, before they get back into society. And it gives us the opportunity to go into different treatment centers and be able to relate to those people. What my recovery has afforded me is to be able to found Reboot Jackson. And Reboot Jackson, quick story, it's all capitalized because it's actually abbreviated. We couldn't get Reboot Jackson as a name, and we already had a logo and a name and was branding it. And so it now stands for Recovery Empowerment Building Opportunities of Teamwork. And we're in Jackson County, so that's where the Jackson comes from. So it gave me the opportunity to give back to a community that I tried to destroy. I grew up in Jackson County. I live right across the street from my mama today. It's afforded me to buy a home, and actually the home that the magistrate of Jackson County used to live in, where my warrants were wrote, which is the office that I started Reboot Jackson in. So it's, my higher power's got a real good sense of humor today.
Yeah, you do.
And he just lets John go with it. And I get to enjoy it. You mentioned Jen, wonderful woman of recovery. She's an amazing woman at Reboot Jackson. Her daughter is playing in a championship game tonight, and go Tigers.
Absolutely.
So I get to participate today in my family's lives. And here's that vulnerable thing y'all were talking about. This is what it means to me today. Getting to participate and help.
To see a man worship and thank God for where he is compared to where he could be. That's what we need to see as people. We especially women, because you're right. Shane said something. He was like, yeah, men are built to be strong and to lead the way. But what happens when we need to be led and we need to be strengthened? And that's what you just showed me. When I tell you that was the most amazing moment, what you just did, John, you let every man that's watching, it's okay to cry, because I know where I could be. But I thank God I can remember where I've been. Because some of us, if we forget where we've been, we are doomed to repeat it. So I'm excited. I'm excited that you get excited about the house that they used to write the warrant in. Now you walk up in there and say, peace, be still. Hallelujah. Come on. We say it in the black church. Won't he do it? Oh my God, John. The first time I saw you and Jen was in a meeting. Attorney, was it Bailey? He was having the opiate meeting. Mm-hmm. And he invited some of the leaders in the community, and you stood up. And at that time, Reboot Jackson was not, it was frowned upon.
Yeah. They
was like, we don't need no recovery center here. We're doing fine. And I fixated my eyes on y'all, but did not know within the next year, we would keep seeing each other in smaller circles. And now your organization is in a position where y'all are doing resume writing, mental health counseling. Funding is coming to you. The lives that y'all are changing, all because you stood your ground and you said, I'm going to say it, you can't say it, but this is my show. Hell no, we won't go.
I've known Mike Beatty for a long time. I don't know, probably 25 years. Before he became a Washington politician. And being in recovery and a person of recovery, he was there trying to put together some funding for our community to help with the opiate situation and to help with substance use. And Jen actually got on to me afterwards, and she said, you're going to make some people mad. And I didn't mean any offense to, they had the school system there. They had the criminal justice system there. They had faith-based community there. and there was one other community or group of organizations. I think it was medical community.
Yeah, it was.
Which is fine. And no disrespect to any of those four, but they didn't have recovery represented. And that's what the opiate situation is a situation that needs recovery. And they didn't, each one of those, you can medically recover. Faith-based is finds recovery in it. People in the school system try to direct people in the right path. All of those organizations and groups of people can help find recovery. And at Reboot, we look at all pathways of recovery. But to have a recovery voice, it wasn't there.
I hear you. I hear you, sir.
And that was why I spoke up that day and said what I said. And I guess I'm a little biased, and I may jump the gun on you, but I think the reason I felt that way is when we started Reboot, I went and talked with Sheriff Mangum. She got me plugged into Judge Mingledorf, and we started working with accountability courts. And Judge Mingledorf's perspective was, we don't have a voice of recovery in our accountability courts. We need somebody to have that. Mm-hmm. And so he gave me that platform. So I kind of had that arrogance, I guess, if you will, but just enough to be able to stand up and say, hey, why not let us be in the middle? And I think I ended up going around and talking to each group, and each group was like, you're right, because we don't understand where you're at.
Absolutely. One thing that I can say, being in the HIV community and working as a faith leader, I often hear the statement, you cannot resolve the issue about us without us. Yes. And that's the way they say it. It can't be for us if it's not with us. How are you going to find a way to resolve or stop the epidemic of HIV, but you ain't asked the people who are living with HIV?
That's right.
That's just crazy.
That's right.
And for you to make that statement, it has to be a part of the process. Everything starts with a process. A seed does not become corn until the process of a seed being planted first.
That's right.
So for recovery to happen for people that are coming out of the system, you have to give them all options. And sometimes you have to tell them which option to take because this is new.
That's right.
So John, talk to me. And I know you're doing some wonderful work. You and your wife, y'all are truly a team. And I see the people that are coming through. But what was your faith to move? How did you get on this side of the fence? What were you doing on the other side?
Listening to Shane talk about the men and vulnerability, and if we weren't on a show and trying to be upfront about things, I'm covered in tattoos. Pastor Sandy, you've seen my arms. I'm covered up. I'm a big guy. I come from the biker community. I was that guy. And so I never looked at my past the way some people look at their past, as Shane was talking about with what he saw in his home. And a few years ago, somebody introduced me to some trauma information and becoming trauma-informed care certified. And I've been through that training at this point in time, and I am trauma-informed care certified as well. But I went through a little test, if you will, and there were 5 questions on it. And it goes through that, you may have trauma, you may not have trauma, depending on the number of questions that you answer accordingly. Well, I had 4 out of 5. And it wasn't that I saw my parents doing drugs or anything really crazy, I guess you would say, to me, because it's how I grew up.
Absolutely.
I did see my dad beat my mom when he would get drunk, and he would get drunk pretty regular. We lived in a normal community, average means income. Me and my brother had what we needed growing up. We didn't do without. Our family was a middle-class family. What I know is about age 13, my dad owned some equipment, and it was on one side of the town. Our house was on the other side of the town. Well, I knew everybody in town because my graduating class had 21 people in it.
You graduated from Jefferson.
I did commerce. Go Tigers. So it was a small town at that time, and so we knew everybody. Well, at that time, the railroad tracks split the town. The white community lived on one side of the tracks, and the black community lived on the other. Well, I knew the black community because I went to school with them. Well, my dad's equipment was on that side of the tracks, so I hung out with the black kids just like I hung out with the white kids. And I chose to stay on the other side of the tracks from my family and learned to do the things that community did. And no disrespect to the black community, I have some of my greatest friends that are black people. Me and Shane are great friends. And, you know, it was what was available, and I made a choice to do those things. Did the trauma affect it? Possibly. But through school, I played football as I was getting high. When I got out of high school, I graduated high school, went to work, getting high. Along about 2004, 2004, I came home one evening. I was married to my second wife. The lifestyle had ruined the first marriage. I had a child with that first wife. I was actually at my daughter's softball practice and had left my wife at home. And I came home to two Jackson County Sheriff's Department guys, two narcotics guys, two City of Commerce guys, and a dog in my house. I ended up looking at 4 felony drug charges and a misdemeanor drug charge. So I was looking at 81 years. And long story short, I didn't do 81 years. However, when my sentence completed in 2006, that didn't stop me. I didn't find recovery until 2008.
And that was in what year?
2006. So two years after. Interesting story, I'll tell you in just a moment. But after I thought my sentences were completed in 2006, my lifestyle didn't change. And I think that's some of what we're kind of looking at with this discussion. My lifestyle didn't change because I didn't learn anything different. When I came back home to the community that I grew up in and ran in and the circles I ran in. I didn't know a different thing. And so for another 2 years, I lived that same lifestyle. The sentencing and the time served and those things didn't change my mentality. It didn't change my demeanor. And I said a while ago, it was kind of, I have a carry permit today. And I went to get my carry permit about 6 months ago. I turned in all the paperwork, paid for it to be done. And the probate here in Jackson County knows who I am, knows what we do, who we are. Well, she called me and she said, I can't process your application. You have an open case. I said, yeah, I don't think so. And she said, yeah, you do have an open case. In 2006, you were taking care of some parole and probation stuff, and I'm missing some forms saying that it's complete. And I didn't know what I had to go through a process of finding where I did my probation. Parole is no longer in business, so I had to find how to get that paperwork. Wow. But they were missing a form of completion that the judge has to sign off on. And had I committed a crime or got caught, I committed some crimes from 2006 to 2008. But had I been caught committing a crime even up until last year, I'd be in prison today.
Absolutely.
Not because of something that I didn't do, but because of someone else's lack of completion. I'm glad I was in recovery for the last 12 plus years.
You're lying. And the grace of God covering you.
Yeah.
for you to say, now I'm getting ready to expose that so you can get it fixed.
Yeah.
Because you're in recovery, because you are obedient. I need for my people in the audience, I need for you to show me some love. Show my guests some love. Give me some hearts. Give me some likes. Give me some shares. Because it's not often that we get to hear this story. It's not often that we get to see men talk about where they used to be to where they are now and how they're paving it forward. Because majority of people, I got mine, now you got to get yours. You know, I don't went through the system. I ain't trying to help nobody else. I'm trying to lay low. The less people know about me, the better off I am. But that's not the story for Shane and John. They're like, I'm going to tell my truth so you won't have to find out what your truth is. I want you to know what it looks like. John, I'm when I tell you, every time we have conversations, and it's only a phone call I need. I can call Jen. I'm like, hey, Jen, I need for you to bring your drug test. I need for you to swab somebody. Okay. It's not like what you need it for, because they know if I'm calling, it's got to be something serious. Because I don't play with people's time nor their gifting. Because God is giving you this to be used for the community. Don't waste my time on it. So I appreciate y'all and what you're doing. I'm going to bring back Shane. We got about 20 minutes. And I need for my audience, we got Kim on the line here. Kim is lighting it up with conversations. We had my nephew out of Texas. Congratulations, young man. Yeah, she was surprised you did 25. Well, you were scheduled to do 25 to life, but God said, no, I got something else for him to do. I'm going to give him life, but life more abundantly.
Absolutely.
No test, no testimony. Praise God for you. John Carton. John gonna make me cry. Yeah. John made everybody cry on this piece right here. If my eyelashes wasn't on, I'd have cried myself, but I got to keep them on. Let's see. All right. We've been there, and we have to tell our story to save someone else. There you go, Mwanda. There you go.
Nice, man.
So this is a question that was given to me, and I don't know if we can answer if we need to bring somebody in that knows the law. But once I'm as John, you say it so eloquently, coming back, it was a citizen. What did you name it?
A returning citizen.
A returning citizen. I come back in citizenship.
Because when you're in prison, you lose your rights.
Let's see something. Darius, can you pull that echo out for some reason? I don't know if we can. I think you did. How can someone get expunged? Their record is a certain defense and certain offenses. How does that work, or is it possible?
Well, here in Athens, I've been in collaboration with the solicitor's office, and we've done expungement campaigns. But these campaigns are for charges that didn't turn to actual convictions.
That's right.
And usually they are misdemeanor charges. They are trying to expand it now to include certain felony charges. So the nutshell answer is that if that gavel was struck and you were sentenced for that crime, chances are you're going to have to deal with that charge for some time to come.
And if I'm going to put a plug out there. If anybody wants to go to change.org, they do a lot of advocacy for the expungement process.
Say it again, change.org.
Yes, ma'am. They do a lot of advocacy for that. And Shane, wasn't it last year when they tried to get a bill passed in the state of Georgia? They were working on it then, and bits and pieces of it passed. Like some of what they were working on was depending on the crime.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if you are sentenced, as you said, that gavel goes down, and it's not a felony, but maybe a misdemeanor, you have a better chance getting them expunged for a misdemeanor, more so than a felony.
Absolutely.
Okay. What did y'all need when you came out? John, you spoke on it. Shane, you spoke on what, knowing what you know now, what do I need when I come out and I'm a returning citizen? What type of organizations, what type of support?
Well, for me, John, if you don't mind, for me, there are two things that prison do to you. Prison desocializes you, and it lowers your expectation of yourself.
Yes.
When you're held accountable for doing nothing more than standing up for count time, locking down in your room when they tell you to go eat, it lowers your expectation of yourself. So what someone needs coming out is someone to first and foremost to believe in them, because there's a process that has happened that's not going to be undone in the first month or 2 or 3. And one of the things that I had is a tremendous amount of support. And two, I often tell whether it's groups, individual, or government official that I speak to, that I'm an exception to the rule. John is an exception to the rule. Coming out of prison, you normally don't do what we do. The reason I was able to be an exception is because while in prison, I was fortunate enough to work in the warden's office, in the administrative building. So I interacted with free world people that did not have on prison guard uniforms for about 10 of the 20 years that I was incarcerated, and it kept me socialized. And I did not realize the value of that until I came home. So people need that support while they go back through that socialization process, and they need people to pour into them to enable them to believe in themselves again.
I agree. It made me think. Shane was talking earlier. He was talking about people being retrained, and I was thinking about Dottie with her softball. We had her out here today. They play in that game tonight, and we had her out here working on her batting technique and how she's standing and how she needs to turn her hips and how she needs to do it. And we wouldn't even pitch the ball to her. We would act like we were going to pitch. We'd make her do it and make her do it and make her do it and make her do it. Like I'm tired of doing it. And I was like, yeah, but Dottie, you want to be good at this. So you've got to do it over and over and over. That's how I did drugs. That's how I knew how to do drugs. That's how I knew how to go to the police. That's how I knew how to hide, because I did it over and over and over and over. It's the same thing.
So you have to find a way to break and form a new cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What about community stakeholders?
Can I get on that, Shane?
Go ahead, John.
Absolutely.
I think we, and Shane and them do too, as RCOs, we do a lot of trainings, and we invite the community to come to those trainings. And I think one of the biggest, what I see with Reboot, one of the biggest things in the community is people look around and say, we don't need that in this community.
Yeah.
It's already in your community. Let's find a solution to help better your community. And so for me, it's been September will be 3 years since we started Reboot. In my home. We've been in the public eye, I guess, since you were talking about that time with Mike and Lady. We were still in our home at that point in time. We were in a public eye. So almost 2 years we've been actually in the public eye. So it's been a slow process, but we have some community members now that we can pick them up and call them and they'll do anything to help. But it's taking that proven effort for them to look at us and say, you know what, they are doing something. They're doing what they think they're going to do. They're working like they said they're going to work. But it's taken almost 3 years to get to that point.
Y'all hold y'all's thoughts. My audience can't hear, and I want to make sure they hear. So let me see if we can get this taken care of. We may have to shut back down and come back up. All right? Hold on. Darius. Do you want me to shut it down? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you think we're good? Okay. All right then. Bye. All right, let's see. John, can you hear me?
I can.
No feedback. All right.
No feedback.
Audience, y'all straight? Somebody give me because I want everybody to hear what we're talking about. But the question I was asking you was community stakeholders. And you made a very good point. Some communities do not want to believe that there's a problem until it knocks on their door.
That's right.
There was a conversation we was having with domestic violence being in the school system. And I'm going to say it, some board of education do not want to have the health department to come in. They do not want to have the peace place, which is, sexual assault, because it's not in their schools until, and I'm going to say it, somebody's faculty member, somebody's administration, somebody's daughter get caught and is sexually assaulted. Now we want to bring light to it. But why do we have to wait for your child to be hurt before you realize there's a problem? With that being said, why do we have to wait before your son come home and they need to go to rehab before you realize that the city has a problem? And I guess that's why we do what we do as Foundations for Living, is that we gonna talk and somebody gonna eventually listen. and it's just not like you gonna listen, but we need to put a process in plan. Because John, I know y'all, and I'm gonna bring this question to Shane. When it comes to housing, it is very difficult for people that are coming back, reentry to society, to get housing. Because my community, the HIV community, they can't find housing. Mm-hmm. Domestic violence, when they're running from their assailant, they can't find housing. What can we do as a community, Shane, to help you continue your processing housing people? Go ahead, Shane, answer that question.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things that we focus on is trying to secure more locations, more housing, more buildings, so that we can expand our housing process. And what we say is, you give us the material and we'll give you the process, and we'll deal with this. And what that requires is for more community stakeholders to buy into the process. And I was listening to what John was saying, and it reminded me of a situation that we ran into when we opened up our first house in Comer, Georgia. We now have 2 houses there. But there was, thank you, and there was some pushback from the community. I mean, ultimately, the mayor happens to stay next door to the units that we opened. And they got to the left-hand side, he has a Trump and a Rebels flag in the window. So just to give you the dynamics that we found ourselves between. And here we are, a house full of recovering addicts that are saying that, hey, I need a chance to make my life better. But there was some community pushback. Ultimately, we had to meet with the mayor of Comer, Georgia. And he pretty much told us, some people don't want you here. And they tried to pull on some municipalities, some county rules to say that, we couldn't be there. But fortunately, we had done enough research to counter that. But the only thing that won him over is that one of the young guys in our program, a young Caucasian male, had lost his job. And we had put him in a predicament saying that, hey, you either get you another job, or you're going to have to face some consequences. And that was all he needed. He went out into Comer, Georgia, which is in, Bucktusa, Georgia, in the middle of nowhere. And he walked down the road and he happened upon the mayor. And he told the mayor, hey, I'm in this program. This is what I'm trying to do. And the mayor gave him a job. So fast forwarding it to us having that conversation with the mayor, initially he was kind of going with the pushback. Then I reminded him of that young white male. Mind you, the mayor's white. And when he was able to connect the dots between given opportunity, recovery with that young white male that he can relate to, his whole demeanor changed.
Come on, sir.
Now he understands. So when you ask, why is it that it has to happen to us? Because a lot of times we get comfortable in our comfort zone. And until our comfort zone is shaken up, we feel like anyone outside of it really doesn't matter when it comes down to it. And so that was one of the situations where he saw possibly his grandson, his nephew, or even himself being in a situation and being helped and asking for help to come out of that situation. And it was only then that he obligated himself to say, hey, I need to be a part of this process. And now we have a working relationship with him.
I'm not going to say, yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. Like I said, people don't believe doo-doo stink until you put their nose in it. He did not think it was an issue collectively as a community until God sent that man to ask him, for some help. Other than that, he thought it was another community's issue. The other person on the other side of the tracks. But we have to realize we are diverse, but our issues are the same. We are diverse people, but when you cut our skin, it's still red blood. So we need to come out of the fact that's your problem. No, baby, it's everybody's problem. It may not sleep with you. It may not be in your household, but you know somebody that's either mentally have some concerns, HIV positive, domestic violence, got somebody coming out of jail, somebody who need a job. But we want to walk around here like that ain't my problem. Use a lie. Because if it wasn't a problem, y'all, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would not have over 600,000 people and 2/3 of that going back into the system. We got comments. Sometimes people have to try to put themselves in other shoes, walk in my shoes to see what I went through to get where I am today. That's Mwanda. God, I thank you. Can't understand. Okay, she was telling me that the sound is much better now. People just want to hear the truth. So look, here's a question. And I'm going to ask y'all this. Both of y'all work in recovery. Both of y'all have your own dynamics that come through your front doors. John, let me ask you this. What's the percentage of people in your recovery? What's the race? What's the demographics?
You know, it's interesting that you asked that because that was a topic that we had at our board of directors meeting just the other day. And I'll answer that, but I want to elaborate on it too, if you'll give me that right.
Absolutely.
We are by far 99% Caucasian. People attend our meetings, come see us on an individual basis. There are some black gentlemen and a couple of black ladies that come to some of our meetings once a week. We see somewhere around 350 to 400 individual persons a month. And there's probably giving us the benefit of the doubt 10 that are not Caucasian people.
I got you.
As far as a Hispanic community or any other community, it's nil.
Is it because they don't know about you, or we as a race don't want no help? I got you, Shane. I got you. I'm gonna let you come in.
And that's why I wanted to elaborate a little further on that. I have some really good friends in recovery that have some really long-term recovery that come to those meetings. And I've talked to them because, as Shane knows, as an RCO, we keep a lot of data. And the demographics of races is one of those data collections that we do. And I asked the man, I said, you know, why is it that we don't have the black community here? Why can't we get them to come here? And he said, it's the culture. He said, our culture don't want your help.
Mm.
And Shane knows the gentleman. He did a very long stint in prison, and he found recovery in prison, and he jumped up and shouted one day what Martin Luther King Jr. hollered about, I'm free, I'm free. And Shane, you probably know who I'm talking about, works down in the recovery center in Athens. Very strong man in recovery. And that was what he told me. And I don't know how to overcome that.
Okay, stay right there.
Okay, yeah.
Shane, get ready. I'm going to read this comment. Trey Moon, I think it's the fear of judgment. Why is as people don't reach out for help? Mwanda says it's not a race problem. It's a we issue. We have to be truthful to what society really is. So Shane, Do we as a people don't want no help or what?
I cringe every time I hear that. Every time I hear that. Who does not want to be better? Who wants to be down in addiction? Who wants every day, every moment of their life to consist of just bare survival? To say that we don't want help is to feed into all the prejudices that kept us confined to slave plantations all those years ago. So
Come
it's
on,
not
sir.
true. From my experience, when we changed our location of our RCO, Recovery Community Organization, to another side of town, it was a side of town I grew up on. And I told staff that as a director, we're going to be intentional about reaching out to the African American and Hispanic communities. The reality is this, Pastor Sandy, recovery is a business. You would think that it's a, you know, it's a just a charitable thing. Recovery is a business, and people have found a way to make recovery a business. So just as with any business market, you're going to market recovery to those that can afford it, and that's the key thing: marketing. People knowing that this help is available. When we went to the first neighborhood on that side of town, which is the east side of Athens, impoverished neighborhood, myself, one of the recovery coaches, who is also African American male, we got out in the community and we went out and we set up tables, we fed lunches, we kind of built up a trust with community. Then we began to have the conversation about recovery. There was, I will never forget, we approached 3 older men and they were obviously in addiction, you know, if only alcoholism. And we began to talk about recovery. And one of the older men said, "Well, what is that?" And that
Wow.
sums it up. He said, "What is that?" And the other 2 were looking, waiting for the answer. So eventually, another young man came over, and we had a crowd after a while explaining to them that our organization offered free recovery assistance. We'll assist you in the treatment program, and they had no idea. And the word spread like wildfire. And eventually, we had individuals first from that neighborhood coming to our organization seeking help. It is not marketed to the African American Hispanic community because they can't afford treatment. So why take the time to market it to them? When we went and made the treatment available to them for free using the money that the government has put into our organization, guess what? We have more African Americans right now that are going to recovery than we did prior to. So I cringe when I say we don't want your help. That's in my experience, that's just not true. If your help is not marketed to us, we don't know about your help, we can avail ourselves of it, and you can't blame us for not doing so. That's my soapbox on that.
Well, I've often been told, and you are right, I've often been told that you have to pay for recovery. Judge Mingledorf, that particular court, sometimes if your insurance does not cover it, you cannot go through that. But now I'm finding out that there are recovery programs, whoever so will, let them come. And it has to be marketed in locations where we can get the information. We got people ringing off this. I've learned once I got on papers, my goal was to stay off the papers. I had to change my life and mindset because my choices affected others, not just me. These are what the comments that are coming in. Y'all are bringing life to some of our audiences. Y'all are bringing truth. Y'all are having conversations that people want to have but don't know how to have them. And being transparent, because sometimes we believe it's a privileged world based on the color of our skin. There are advantages based on the color of our skin. There are disadvantages based on the color of our skin. But healing comes when you go searching for it. I'm not going to knock on your door and tell you you need to be healed. Baby, you got to come outside and let me show you where it is. You've got to want to be healed. And that's just me. If I want to eat something, I got to first tell myself to get up and go to the kitchen. If I want to be healed from recovery, if I want to have some type of support system, when I get out and become a re-citizen, I got to go where they are. And y'all are making that available. John, you're making that available. Shane, you're making that available. And I commend y'all. I'm getting ready. We're over time, but that's okay. They know I don't even care. But John, tell them how people in Jackson County, Banks County, Wyandotte, how can they reach you? And Shane, I'm going to tell you to do the same thing.
we have a website, rebootjackson.com, Facebook. Jen's on the Instagram, and I think Reboot is on the Instagram now as well. If you happen into, and I'm going to put some shameless plugs out here, Pastor Sandy. If you happen to walk into R3 Tattoo when you're in the Jackson County, Jefferson community, that is one of the businesses that helps to support Reboot Jackson. Myself and Jen and another peer coach are the owners of that. And if you happen to walk into Second Step Staffing, that's another business that we have created to help people get jobs when they can't get their background expunged, to help them get employment. So lots of ways you can reach us. All of those have websites, r3tattoo.com, secondstepstaffing.com, rebootjackson.com. I don't know. There's probably a jenlangston.com. I don't know.
But tell me the days of recovery that y'all have y'all meetings, just in case somebody want to stop by.
If they want to stop by, we have CPS ADs, CPS mental health, peer coaches there Monday through Friday. They're there from 9 to 5. We do all varieties of recovery meetings, all recovery, Narcotics Anonymous, for the parent or spouse of someone who may suffer from mental health or substance use issues. We have Nar-Anon meetings. We have a faith-based meeting. So we do a lot of different meetings. Most all of the meetings start at 6:30. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We do strictly accountability court at 6:30 on Monday night. And there is a veterans in recovery meeting on Tuesday night at 8:00.
So again, no excuse if you want it. All right, Shane.
Yes, ma'am. Our organization can be found at www.peopleLivingInRecovery.com. We have a Facebook presence as well, PLR Athens. Also, our recovery home, Martin Pathways to Recovery. We have a Facebook page there as well. We're in-house. COVID kind of changed the way that we function. We have Monday through Friday. We're in operation from 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock. And every day from 11 to 12, we offer peer-led recovery. And this is where individuals who are CPS, as the gentleman mentioned, it means certified peer specialists. The AD mean addictive diseases. So we specialize in assisting individuals as peers, not as clinicians, but as peers in addictive disease and recovery. And these groups are offered, this recovery support group offered every day from 11 to 12 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and on Saturday from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And due to COVID, we've acted more as a clearinghouse in directing individuals to treatment programs. And it helped because we're able to provide more practical help to individuals coming through our doors. And we do host AA, NA meetings. We do host meetings from accountability courts as well. And we're open to any group that wants to meet that's recovery oriented. All they have to do is contact us, book a time. We'll make sure that that slot is available. And therefore, we can make available to any individual whatever pathway to recovery that you're looking for. And I just say this, I often tell the guys that come in, your recovery does not have to look like mine. If your recovery is getting naked in a tree and howling at the moon, as long as you're sober, we're going to find you the highest tree on the land. So we're going to assist you in whatever manner you need to be assisted to achieve your sobriety and to be able to participate in life again, as John has said. And last but not least, Martin Pathway to Recovery, we're always looking to expand. We have one female that's on staff. She dedicates a lot of her time. She's also in long-term recovery, and she wants to start housing for women and children. That's going to be kind of a niche because you don't have that much. So anyone that may have a building that they may want to dedicate for that purpose, we will come there, we will set it up, we will man it, and we will expand recovery opportunities for all individuals. So if that opportunity arises, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
You have not because you asked not.
Because you asked not. Yes, ma'am.
I thank God that I stepped out on faith and did this show. I was watching the wrestling westerns, and the westerns had an episode of, let's say, John Cartwright, plantation owner. He had a bunch of cattle, and a young man came to him who was the warden. He said, "Look, I got 3 guys I want you to put on your cattle ranch for 6 months. Let them work there. When they finish, we will reduce their sentence. If this works, then the governor will allow me to use this as a process." I'm watching this show and I begin to cry because that was the confirmation I needed to let me know that this show needed to be heard. It needed to be heard because people are coming out and they need a chance. And sometimes their success may not look like yours, but it's a success story. And I look at both of y'all and I see what the hand of God has done, where you can look back and say, hey, just step where I've stood. You ain't got to make your new steps. Just take the same steps, and I promise you, you'll get on the other side of good. So I thank y'all. I really do. John, what is a nugget? What is a positive affirmation that you can give to the audience? Hold up. Darius, oh, there you go. Go ahead, John.
I've got the opportunity to speak at several places, and I've got a mentor that I've never met, but I have watched what he's done over the last 30 plus years. And I love what he says, and I always like to pass it on. And that is that society is a circle of people with prominent, uppity people in the middle and people that live on the fringes of society. And the people that live on those margins, I think, are the people that we've been talking about in public's eye, because they're the poor that people don't think can ever be rich. They're the powerless that need to be empowered. They're the voiceless that need a voice. They're the people that I like to hang out with, that I am, because that's where I lived. And I stand there with those on the margins of society, the disposable, so we'll stop throwing them away. The people with socially people look at and say they're the problem, so we can find out what their solution is. And I stand with them in awe, not to judge them, but I stand there in awe of how they carry their burdens. And I think that's what society needs to be looking at, is how somebody on that margin of society may have the answer to cancer. But how will we ever know if we're not there to help them?
Lord have mercy. Whew. All right, Shane, talk to me.
For me, I say that, because people are always trying to determine their value, for the better or for the worse. My thing is that you're only as valuable as your most sincere effort to make this world a better place. So where you're expending your efforts and energy. And I say this to people because if what you're doing or what you're striving for is doing nothing to improve the lives of the individuals around you or this world that we're living in, then no matter what type of fake value you have assigned to yourself in the eyes of God and in the eyes of humanity, you're valueless. So you're only as valuable as your most sincere effort to make this world a better place.
Lord have mercy. Sometimes I wonder, do we have to go through the bad moments to get to where we are? And I look at both of y'all and I wonder, would you be these great men had you not had to go through what you went through?
Sure.
Powerful. I'm going to give you these comments and then we're going to close out. There's mute them. Where's the comment was? It was thank you both, Mr. John and Mr. Shane, for some very informative information. Miss Sandy, thank you for hosting these informative segments. Amen. Powerful. Amen. This right here, no test, no testimony. People have truly been blessed by what y'all have said. And I just thank you for saying yes. Again, people, sign in, tune in. Faith to Move Forward is doing just what it is. By faith, we're moving forward. And I'm excited that people are wanting to come on the show to be truthful, not with themselves, but for the people that needs to hear truth. We hear so many lies that we really don't know what truth looks like anymore. But I tell you today, I'm looking at two powerful men that are truth and that are showing truth to society. We're gonna close out with Shane closing us in prayer. And from that, I'll come back with two announcements and we're gonna close out. But Shane, do what you do.
God, you are the creator of the heavens and the earth, of night and day, of the mountains and valleys. You create the contrast that we may find ourselves between them. We ask that you guide us through the highs and lows. We ask that you guide us in the darkness as you do in the light. And we ask that you humble our spirits so that we may see that we're indeed in need of guidance. God, we ask that you place upon this world a peace, a tranquility, a sense of vulnerability that allow us to be remolded, that allow us to be reshaped. And our final prayer, God, is that you guide us to do what is pleasing in your sight, that we may be a benefit to ourselves in this world, in this life, and that we may say to you in the hereafter that my job is done. Amen.
Amen. Two announcements. Next Thursday, I never do a show back to back, but we're going to have COVID-19 part 2. We're bringing Dr. Burley back, and we're bringing the Pastor Edwin Beckles, who will be collaborating with Foundations for Living to have a vaccination drive in Monroe on May the 28th. Please meet us here next Thursday at 6:30. And also tomorrow night, I will be interviewed by one of my nephews out of Houston, Texas. And when I say nephew, he's not my blood nephew. But when you have a passion and you have a love for people that you're kin, but not necessarily maybe your blood kin, you're my nephew. And he works in the industry of ending HIV epidemic. So we're going to talk a subject about, are we mad at the church or are we mad at Christ? So meet us here tomorrow at 8:00 for that interview. But next Thursday, meet us on Faith to Move Forward as we talk about COVID-19 and the community. John and Shane, y'all stay here while we close us out. We love y'all. Facebook, hold it down. I'll talk to you soon.